Take a look at this phone buzzing in someone's pocket. It's a familiar feeling, right? Except for nearly 90% of people, that buzz is a complete hallucination. It's called phantom vibration syndrome, a psychological phenomenon where your brain tricks you into feeling a notification that isn't actually there. This imaginary itch is a symptom of a very real physical process. Because social media provides immediate, effortless rewards, our nervous systems are literally rewiring themselves to expect and crave constant digital stimulation. Every time you post about your own views or experiences, your brain releases dopamine. MRI scans show that this self-disclosure activates the exact same reward centers in the brain that are stimulated by love and orgasms. For the 5 to 10% of people unable to control their internet use, the neurological impact goes even further. Scans of their brains reveal a clear degradation of white matter, the tissue that facilitates communication between different neural regions. This is the exact same type of impairment seen in people with severe substance dependencies. White matter degradation targets the specific regions of the brain responsible for emotional processing and decision-making. Your digital diet erodes the physical pathways required for sound judgment. This physiological rewiring is especially potent in teenagers. When researchers asked kids over the past few decades to identify their top priorities, the answers shifted drastically. Being part of a community used to rank near the top. Today, the #1 value is fame, closely followed by money. Looking at this massive, brightly lit stage for American Idol, you can see exactly what media is communicating to a young audience. Decades ago, popular shows centered around community and family dynamics. Modern programming elevates individual stardom as the ultimate goal. This pursuit of constant stimulation comes at a direct cost to our empathy. Neuroscientists have discovered that the brain regions responsible for learning and experiencing empathy only activate when you are daydreaming or doing absolutely nothing. Since smartphones fill the idle gaps in our day, like waiting for a bus, they crowd out the resting state of the brain. Without these periods of daydreaming, the neural circuits dedicated to empathy remain dormant. When you network billions of these empathy-drained brains together, you create an environment where attention itself is a traded commodity. Likes, comments, and shares act as social currency, a metric we use to attribute tangible value to our digital interactions. The primary good purchased with this currency is the highlight reel. People post their wins, their vacations, and their best angles, while the viewer compares those heavily curated peaks to their mundane, behind-the-scenes reality, breeding deep insecurity. We tie our self-worth directly to the performance of these posts. When a photo doesn't gather enough likes fast enough and is quietly taken down, it reveals a stressful transaction where the user has willingly become the product on the shelf. What keeps us on that shelf is FOMO, or the fear of missing out. This is a documented social anxiety stemming from the fear that disconnecting means losing potential connections and opportunities, trapping users in a constant loop of checking their feeds. Combine this high-stakes social validation with the biological deficit of empathy, and the result is a massive rise in online harassment. Without the face-to-face cues that normally inhibit cruel behavior, sending a mean comment or spreading private photos becomes frictionless. These combined stressors mutate basic communication tools into hostile environments. Every time you log on, you are entering a high-stress battleground built to exploit your insecurities for social validation. The anxiety generated by this system is highly profitable. Our digital attention is constantly being harvested by media transnationals, massive mass media corporations that produce television, movies, and online content across multiple countries. This graphic shows a historical shift. In 1983, American media was distributed among 50 companies. By 2012, that 90% market share was swallowed by a near monopoly, controlled by just 6 corporate giants: Comcast, News Corp, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, and CBS. This aggressive media convergence creates what is known as the universalization of popular culture. When a tiny handful of executives dictate the algorithms and the programming, the exact same cultural values, stories, and consumer desires are pushed onto a vast global audience. With 6 companies controlling 90% of all media, the diversity of stories shared with the public becomes increasingly narrow. These corporations leverage our biological drive for social currency to standardize cultural output across the globe. With so few companies holding so much power, is local diversity doomed? Not entirely. Users and local cultures are actively pushing back through a process called hybridization. Hybridization happens when people blend traditional cultural arts with mass communication technology. Instead of just consuming universal content, they mix it with their own local identities to forge completely new modes of expression. You can see this cultural adaptation in this image of an Indian McDonald's menu. Even a massive transnational corporation is forced to adapt to local tastes, offering a McVeggie or a McCurry pan instead of a standard American burger. And while the internet physically separates us, it also builds highly specific bridges. Studies show a statistical increase in successful relationships that begin online, and these networks allow marginalized individuals to find supportive communities that might not exist in their physical towns. Social media and the internet are inherently neutral tools. They possess the power to amplify our darkest psychological insecurities, but they simultaneously provide access to an incredible array of diverse cultural connections. Simply throwing your phone into the ocean and logging off forever isn't a practical option anymore. Thriving in the digital age requires active, intentional agency over how you use these tools. It starts by conducting a social media audit. Just as you monitor the food that goes into your body, you need to rigorously monitor the information and interactions that go into your head and heart. Actively curate your feeds. Unfollow the brands or people that trigger your insecurities, and intentionally seek out accounts that inspire you. Most importantly, leave your phone in another room sometimes so your brain can actually engage in empathy-building daydreaming. When you take conscious control of your digital environment, you cut the wires on the attention economy. You stop the external rewiring of your brain, protecting your personal mental health and preserving the diversity of our global culture.